Hello. In this tutorial, we're going to explain the concept of inheritance and polymorphism. Specifically, we're going to focus on polymorphism as a means to allow one class to behave as another. So if we consider the definition of the word poly and morph, poly meaning many and morph meaning shape, you can see that through inheritance we can treat an is-a relationship with a subclass acting as a superclass. Now, polymorphism really comes to play a benefit in our programs when we have collections. So that's going to be the basis for this example that we do here. Alright, so to start with, I want to motivate our example. Let's imagine that we want to maintain a collection of animals. And so in our class hierarchy, we have a base class of animal, and from that we're going to inherit and create a domestic animal and a wild animal. And then from those classes we will implement dog and gerbil that inherit from domestic animal, and we'll implement lion and killer whale as subclasses of the wild animal. You can see here in my project space I've created a CSE 1302 animals package, and I've also got a CSE 1302-0402 package. So you should know how to create these packages just by right-clicking and selecting a new Java package. Okay, and then we just can create these classes. Let's focus on the animal class first, and I'll show you how simple this class is. This is it. This is all the code. I have a public class animal, and let's skip over this word abstract for a moment. I have a private string called name, and then I've got two constructors, one that takes nothing that'll initialize the name to no animal, and one that takes a string and will initialize the name attribute of this class to be whatever's passed in there. I have a getter for the name, and the final thing I have here is a public abstract void make noise function. Now let's talk about this keyword abstract. If we have a method that's abstract, then the class itself becomes abstract. So the reason that I have the keyword abstract here at the class level is because I have an abstract method. An abstract method works as a placeholder within a class hierarchy. And what I mean by that is, at the class animal level, I know that all animals should be able to make noise, but I don't know what the implementation detail of that would be. So I know I need this method, but I don't know what code should go in it. So I leave the code blank and I just put a semicolon after the function's definition, and then I mark it as abstract. Now what that means is all animals and all subclasses of animals will be allowed to make noise, but I don't know what that is yet. It'll have to be in the subclasses where we actually implement and override this function. The benefit of this is that I can then create a collection of animal objects and iterate across it and call the make noise method on each one of those objects. And depending on the actual type of animal, whether it's in our case a lion or a killer whale or a dog or a gerbil, they'll all make the proper noise. And that's quite nice in that I can defer the actual work and the details of this until later, and then I can make use of it in my main program by allowing me to invoke this method, and then whatever work is supposed to happen depending on the proper class will actually happen. Okay, so the rule here is we just use the keyword abstract and make sure that you also mark the class as abstract. If you leave that off, then you'll actually get an error telling us that the animal is not abstract and doesn't override the abstract method, so make sure that you leave that keyword abstract on there. Now, if we mark a class as abstract, that means that we cannot instantiate it, so I'll actually never have an object of the animal class. But what I will have is objects of the subclasses. So let's check out those subclasses now. I have the wildanimal.java, which extends animal. It is also abstract because I am implementing the constructor for wild animal here, here, and here. I've got three different implementations of the constructor, and you can see I'm using super to call the constructor in that animal class. And I've added a private int ferocity level as a property and a getter for that ferocity level, but I haven't implemented the make noise method. So this class, wild animal, is still an abstract class because I haven't implemented that abstract make noise method. Also, I've got a new method that I'm introducing here called attack, which is also marked as abstract. This means that all wild animals will know how to attack. The problem is I need to continue to subclass wild animal and create subclasses off of wild animal and then implement the attack and implement the make noise method. On the other side of the coin, I have the domestic animal class, and it also inherits from animal. I have two constructors here, and I'm adding a new abstract method called love on. Presumably we can love or pet on our domestic animals. So in addition to having the make noise method that is still abstract, I now have this love on method, and it is also abstract. So my domestic animal has to be marked as abstract. If you're getting lost in all the details here, let's take a moment and look at our class hierarchy. And you'll notice that I have an animal class, which is the base class, and now I've created wild animal and domestic animal, which inherit from that animal. We have our name property here, and we've added the ferocity level property to wild animal. And I've marked the abstract methods make noise, attack, and love on as blue in italics here. We've got our getter get name and our getter get ferocity level. And what I'm about to show you are the implementation of the concrete classes lion, killer whale, dog, and gerbil. And the attack and make noise method and the love on and make noise methods will actually be implemented in these subclasses. So let's check that out now. Let's look at the lion first. Lion extends wild animal. We have three constructors here, and then I'm implementing the make noise and the attack methods just to do a simple print out on each one of these. So when the lion makes noise, it's going to roar. When the lion attacks, it's going to lunge and rip at the air with its claws. And that's really all there is to the lion. Of course, we could get much more complicated here, but I'm just trying to keep it simple to show what we can do with abstraction or abstract methods and also polymorphism, which we'll see in a moment here. The other wild animal that we have is the killer whale, and the killer whale extends wild animal, as you can see here. We implement three different constructors just to show that we can override those, and then we've got the make noise and the attack method implemented as well. On the domestic side, we have the dog, which extends domestic animal, and we have two constructors for it, and then the implementation of the make noise, and now instead of attack, since the domestic animal has an abstract love on method, then the dog's going to wag its tail and accept our affection as it is being loved on. And when we make noise, then it's going to bark. For the gerbil, which extends domestic animal, we have two constructors and also implementing the make noise and the love on method there. So the gerbil is going to squeak in a tiny cute way, and when we love on the gerbil, it's going to sniff our hand and nuzzle on us. So very, very cute. Gerbil is very different from killer whale. So let's go into main now and make use of these classes. I'm going to first make use of an array list of animal, and it's key that I'm making this array list of animal and not of dog or gerbil or killer whale or lion, because I want to place all of my animals into this. I'm going to call this a menagerie, which is a collection of animals, is equal to a new array list of animal. Okay, so if you recall, the array list just allows us to create a collection of objects. I'm going to right click on this and fix the imports, and that's going to bring in my Java util array list, and it's also going to bring in my animals package.animal. So realize that we've got two different packages, one for main and one for all these classes that I've defined here. Okay, now that I have my array list, let's add some new animals into it. Menagerie.add. I'm going to add a new dog, and I'm going to call it Rex. Okay. Let's get my spelling right here. Menagerie. There we are. Okay. And we're not going to worry about this invalid reference to dog yet. I'm going to add a bunch of different animals and then fix all of the imports there. Menagerie, add a new killer whale. Call this one Orca, and it's got a ferocity level of 10. Let's add a new dog. Let's create another dog here. Call it Toby. Let's add a new gerbil. We'll call it Fluffball. Let's add a new lion. Call it Simba. And it has a ferocity of 5. After the lion, let's add another lion. Call this one Scar, for all of you Disney fans out there. Okay. Next, how about another dog? If we have a killer whale, we might as well have a dog named Princess. Let's add another gerbil. And finally, one more killer whale. We'll call this one Mean One. And he's got a ferocity of 20. Okay, very dangerous. Let's just right-click on these now and fix the imports. And this will bring in all of my dog, gerbil, killer whale, and lion into my main program here. All right, let's do our for loop. To process the entire collection. And very simply, I just want to tell the animal to make noise. Now you'll notice the options that we have here. We can get the name, and we can make noise. Since all animals know how to make noise, regardless of whether it's a dog or a killer whale or a gerbil or a lion, we can invoke the make noise method. And although that make noise method was marked as abstract here in the animal class, once we get down into the individual classes like lion and killer whale and dog and gerbil, we have the concrete implementation of this make noise method. So in our main program, when I call make noise on a killer whale, it's going to run that appropriate code. When I call make noise on a gerbil, it's going to run that appropriate code. And so even though we added these into an array list that stores animals, they retain knowledge of the actual classes that they are, and that's the definition of polymorphism. It's taking a subclass and placing it into a spot reserved for a superclass. So this is perfectly permissible. I could say something like animal A is equal to a dog, a new dog, and this works because a dog is in fact an animal. What won't work though is if I say a dog D is equal to a new animal. This won't work because not all animals are dogs. For example, I could have a new gerbil, which is in fact an animal, trying to place that into a space reserved for a dog. So polymorphism goes one way. I can take a subclass and place it into a space reserved for a superclass, but I can't go the other way about. So let's actually run this now that we have all of our subclasses and our abstract classes defined, and we've added them into this collection, and then we have a for loop that is going to tell all of our animals to make noise. So if we run this, we get down here that Rex barks happily, Orca makes a clicking and sonic noise in the water, Toby barks, Fluffball squeaks, Simba and Scar roar, Princess barks, and Spark squeaks, and the Mean One, which was a killer whale, makes a clicking and sonic noises in the water. Great, so this shows that through polymorphism and through this array list collection, we can insert these subclasses and then have the proper method work automatically for us there. Now, I should also point out that this would work with an array. We're not limited to an array list, so this will work just fine with an array as well. I want to add one more thing to this before we're done here, and I want to show that we can ask a class, in this case A, what type of thing it might be. So I'm going to ask A, which is an animal, are you an instance of the wild animal? And this will return me a Boolean, and it'll be true if A is actually referring to a wild animal, in this case a killer whale or a lion, because all killer whales and all lions are in fact wild animals, and all wild animals are in fact animals. So this is another great example of polymorphism. We're getting an error here because although we imported the dog, gerbil, killer whale, and lion and animal classes, we didn't in fact import the wild animal class. So we can just right-click on this and fix the imports, and that adds the animals package wild animal in. Okay, so if A in fact is a wild animal, I'd like to tell it to attack. I can't just say a.attack because the attack method was implemented in the wild animal class, but I can do typecasting. So I can take A and typecast it as a wild animal, and this typecasting is the same as if I was casting an int to a float or vice versa. And put your parentheses around this so that now I can do my dot operator and I can tell this wild animal to attack. Okay, without the parentheses, it's going to do the a dot attack before it does the typecast, which is not what we want. So typecast using the parentheses wild animals and then put parens around that and invoke the attack method. What this means is if the animal is a wild animal, then we're going to tell it to attack. And if we run this now, not only will they make their noise, but so Rex barks happily, Orca makes his noise, and then Orca thrashes the water and gnashes his teeth. This is in fact the attack output of our killer whale. Toby and Fluffball are quite happy. These are domestic animals. Simba roars, that's the output for his make noise, but notice that also Simba lunges and rips at the air with his claws, which is the implementation of the attack method for the lion. So it shows that the lion and the killer whales are doing not just making their noise, but they're also attacking. And that'll do it for this discussion on polymorphism. The takeaway from this is that polymorphism allows us to take a subclass and place it into the space reserved for a superclass, and through our class hierarchy, as you can see here, we have our superclass and some intermediate abstract classes, and then the concrete classes down here. So we can take objects of type lion, killer whale, dog, and gerbil and place them into a collection reserved for one of the superclasses up here. And in so doing, we can then iterate across that collection and invoke this abstract class and cause the proper methods down here in gerbil, dog, killer whale, and lion, or whatever those subclasses might be, to do the work as it's encoded. And that'll do it for this tutorial.